Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Mendez, host of the RoundTable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señores oyentes de Usala Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo en su programa La Mesa Redonda de RoundTable desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal, from the city of brotherly love. Les habla Fernando Mendez, Dani Ramos controla la máquina digital, nuestro invitado especial, Britt Carpenter. Bienvenido. Welcome, Britt.
Thank you, Fernando. Good morning.
Long time no see.
I know. Lucky you.
Lucky me.
Lucky you.
For people who do not know who you are, you have quite an impressive resume in this community in terms of your engagement with the community. So you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what you have done recently.
Sure. My name is Britt James Carpenter. I run an organization, a nonprofit called Philly Unknown. Philly Unknown was founded, it's coming up on 6 years this December. And our organization works with communities that are most vulnerable here in Philadelphia, ranging from people who are living with a lower socioeconomically disadvantaged areas, areas where they are high in crime, and those that are dealing with the opioid crisis and that of those experiencing homelessness. So we work with the most vulnerable communities here in Philadelphia.
What area of the city more or less do you concentrate on?
We're located and based in Kensington, so we're right here in the Kensington area. But we work with the entire city. We go out through the whole city, but our office is Kensington, our home base is Kensington, and our mission has been working with Kensington residents for quite some time.
So you have been doing this for more or less 6-7 years, you said?
Been doing it for a long time. We've been established as Philly Unknown for the last 6 years.
6 years. So in that period of time, could you tell us how you have firsthand experienced the drug crisis and the homelessness and some of the things you have done to combat both?
Sure. Well, I mean, the substance use disorder is something that's very close to me because I'm a person in recovery. I was in substance use disorder for almost half my life. And when I decided it was time to straighten up and get my act together, I decided it was time to give back to the community. And so I started Philly Unknown. But yeah, I'm very familiar with those experiencing substance use disorder, those that have mental health issues, and those that are just dealing with something that they need help with or in need.
So how do you decide to start something like that? You see a need because you were one of the persons also experiencing substance abuse.
Correct.
You tried to recover, and did you feel that there was a lack of access to help?
I think, for myself, because I was so I was so involved with my own life when I was in active substance use disorder that I didn't really have any peripheral vision seeing anybody else's life. So it was always blinders on. But as I started to understand the need and the help that people were looking for, and that was in dire straits out there on the streets, when I decided it was time to go into recovery, my main mission was I wanted to be able to give back, and I wanted to make it my mission and my ministry to be able to get out there to give back and make sure people had a fighting chance day by day.
So as you begin to germinate this idea of forming an organization, obviously one of the first things to come to mind is funding. Where's the money coming from?
Well, anybody who starts a grassroots nonprofit, right from scratch, most of that funding just comes from your own pocket at first. So I figured if I spent half my life blowing money on things that were almost killing me, I can spend my money on things that were helping me and helping others and helping to heal. So I started that way. But then as time went on, it was just through fundraising efforts. It's through fundraisers and the events that myself and my team plan, that we raise the funds to keep our organization functioning day by day.
So did you form one of those nonprofit corporations?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are registered as Philly Unknown Project, so we are able to receive funding and apply for grants and everything as well.
So in that context, did you receive any help from the city, from the state government, federal government?
Not really,
No.
no. And, applying for grants is like finding a needle in a haystack, because you've got to go through all these jump through all these hoops and get all this paperwork ready, turn it in, only for have them say either nothing at all or I'm sorry, this isn't a good fit. Right. So it's a timely process, but it's thanks to the people that support our nonprofit and our mission that we're able to function and do what we do, because they're the ones that are really helping us to run daily.
Yes, I know there are other smaller organizations in the area doing similar things, maybe focusing on a different aspect of the crisis, because it's a housing crisis, it's homelessness, it's drug addiction, it's crime. So
violence, gun violence.
So, yeah, explain about the conditions of the neighborhood in that sense. Like, how unsafe is it to just walk around, even trying to offer help?
Well, I think it's funny, because people are always saying how can you do the work you do and do it where you do it? And I sort of just look at them and I think, well, it's number one, it's having awareness of what you're doing and being well aware of your surroundings at all times, your environment. And I want people to realize it just doesn't happen in the Kensington area. This is a citywide crisis. Exactly. I mean, the opioid epidemic, which is now an overdose epidemic, because there's more overdoses than anything, runs rampant all over the city. I mean, it's in South Philly, it's in West Philly, it's in Rittenhouse. Mm-hmm. You'll find syringes laying everywhere. So, it's hard to say that, but, for me, in the neighborhood that we're in, it's a challenge every day. Every day is a different battle. And it's also a really good chance to connect with the residents who are looking for people to help them get through and sustain their living. Because let's face it, there's some lifelong residents that have been in the Kensington area. Sure. And, that's not their homes anymore.
Yeah, the neighborhood, I mean, how do they react, knowing that there is this kind of situation right in front of their house, in front of at the front door?
It's a battle. I mean, they're not happy. Residents are not happy. They're compassionate. I've come to realize that they're compassionate. Those that we connect with because we run a community garden over on Rue Street, mm-hmm. and the residents across the street that we connected with, it took a while to break through and to get to them. However, the results have been endless, because once you connect with them and once you treat them like you treat anybody else, with compassion, respect, and humanity, right. The doors are going to open up and they're going to be more willing to accept what you're doing and to assist with it.
But once you come to the realization that not everybody walking around in relation to your project, not everybody is a threat, then in fact, most of those people are just basically homeless and needy, and right. They have nothing to lose. So, well, we're going to take a brief pause here in Usala Radio, the RoundTable. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Britt Carpenter is our guest today. Danny Ramos controla la máquina digital. Regresamos en un momento.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But I get it, you're busy, and busy people can't have prediabetes. I read that wrong. They can, okay? Just go to the site.
Toma menos de 1 minuto saber si está usted en riesgo de padecer prediabetes. Puede averiguarlo aquí. Visite esta página.
Once there was a boy who did the same thing again and again. One day, he was told he had autism. He got help and slowly learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Señores oyentes de Usala Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo en su programa La Mesa Redonda de RoundTable, desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Nos acompaña hoy Britt Carpenter, who has a great deal of experience on this topic of drug abuse and the problems of homelessness particularly in the Kensington area. So we're very familiar with Britt's work. Britt actually has had a show here on Usala Media. He had a program for a while, and in fact, I'm going to ask you about that. So what happened? We stopped the program. We went away. You got tired of doing the good work of the radio?
No, I mean, you're talking about, I was DC. I was before COVID. It's when COVID hit, and we went to a different life. And
Another casualty of COVID.
and I hate to use that as an excuse or blame it, but my life, just like everybody else's, changed, greatly.
No, it's the reality.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID did change.
And it was sad because I loved doing what I did and I loved connecting with the people I connected with. But then I started having to worry more about my daily routine.
Yeah.
Because, life changed so greatly. So it became difficult. I miss it. But yeah, that's sort of
Anyway,
what happened.
so here we are. Maybe you can, at some other point, consider returning. That was always
we'll see about that.
Microphone's always available for you. Anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There's so many things that we, you're familiar with, is the topics that you actually know firsthand.
Mhm.
More of what it is, how it's manifested, what possible solutions are there. Because when Ed Rendell came out in favor of this supposed facility that would help, I don't know if you remember that, and people immediately reacted.
Right.
Not in my neighborhood, NIMBY, no?
NIMBY, not in my backyard.
So where is that whole thing now? What is that whole topic?
Well, that was sort of a crazy time as well, because, back then Safe House is what the name of the organization was looking to bring a supervised consumption site here to the Philadelphia area to help to combat this overdose crisis that we've been facing, and to potentially reach out to more individuals who are suffering from a substance use disorder. However, they were looking to open it up in a neighborhood that was going to be needing it, and they were looking at Kensington, but then they ended up looking at South Philly. And I think just there was some type of disconnect or a lack of communication between the organization and the community itself. And one of the biggest things that we as advocates face is the community and the surroundings, because you need to connect with them. You need to involve them. The more you involve somebody in something, the more they're going to understand it, because there's such a lack of empathy towards us out there. And because of that, there's more apathy from residents and from people. And if it's not affecting you, you don't want to know about it.
Now, was this was it methadone clinic?
There's methadone clinics.
Yeah. What was the nature of the entity that was going to be built and to help addicts with?
Right. Well, a supervised consumption site was something that was being developed and modeled after, it's done in the Vancouver area in Canada,
Right.
Where people that are experiencing substance use disorder and active substance use, one of the biggest things is when you are using, there's that potential that you're going to overdose and that you could die. And if you are by yourself,
Right.
there's no bringing you back from that.
Yeah.
If you have a fighting chance that there's somebody there and you're safely injecting or you're safely utilizing the substances that you choose to use, there is a medical professional that can oversee that.
Right.
There is potential room for help and for people to talk to you about getting into some type of program, to work a program. So there are more than just, people looked at it as being like, so you're setting up a building for people to just go out and then they can go and they can use drugs, and it's illegal. Well, I think people were looking at it like that, and they were failing to realize that it was more the fact that they were looking to save lives and to get people into treatment and to help them more. So if you open a building like that, you open a place like that, you're going to see a lot more people than you can find on the streets.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And but so the controversy is about where do you put them in and so one of the arguments is you should not put a facility of such nature away from where the problem is. If the center of the problem, the crisis, area, in this case, Kensington, is in that part of the city, why would you put a facility elsewhere?
Because an area like South Philly is just as heavily populated and affected by this issue. And I think what people fail to realize is just because Kensington has been known for many, many years as one of the largest open air drug trades in the country. I mean, it was the largest for years, and now it's the largest on the East Coast. But, people look at that and there's that stigma behind Kensington. So you think it's, once again, that NIMBYism. It's not my backyard. It's not happening in Roxborough. It's not happening in Rittenhouse. It's not happening in South Philly. How could that be? Oh my gosh, no, that syringe on the street, that must have been from a diabetic, because diabetics just leave their syringes lie around. So I think people need to realize that, yeah, sure, Kensington is in need of it. We all know this, however, the residents are so against it, but also South Philly needs it. West Philly needs it. Have you ever visited Roxborough Ridge Avenue anytime in the middle of the afternoon? They need it. So I think people's mentality has to get away from that NIMBYism and start looking at it like our backyard is everywhere.
Right.
So you can't say not my backyard. I live in Roxborough, 4.1 miles to my front door of my office in Kensington. To me, that's close. And to me, that's my backyard. So I want to take care of that and I want to help and change it. So, and people have to look at that.
Yeah.
It's stigma.
It's stigma. There's still a stigma about that. Now, in terms of solutions,
Yes.
what is an immediate solution, a possible solution that you see is accessible if the government, a private entity, individuals, those who are concerned about it, activists, if they all work together? What is one thing they could do right now?
I mean, right now, the one thing that we could do is everybody needs to be on the same page, get to understanding what's going on, and work towards finding a solution, such as there are so many empty buildings here in this city,
Right.
so many empty schools that the school district has that they're up for sale. I don't know if you've ever driven by an old school, it says for sale, contact.
I thought there were 26 of them at one point.
Yeah, I'm not even sure the number is now, but we were looking at that. We're looking at a place like, Hahnemann. Hahnemann was empty. And what do? They tried to make there's all these empty buildings, there's all these empty spaces that could be converted and changed into a place that can help people that are experiencing homelessness, people that are experiencing substance use disorder, and making it a place of a safe haven that they can get the help they need and start to transition into a life they deserve. And the city's not doing that. So I'm going to back it right up to that. And I will push the blame right back onto the city, because the city sort of sweeps this right under the rug. They tend to forget about it until they're in the public spotlight, or somebody like Dr. Oz comes walking down the tracks and says, this is hell on earth. And okay, well, we need to do something about it now because it's national news. It's been national news. We've been needing to do something about it. The city fails to act in so many aspects. And when they do it wrong. And that's just where I see it.
Yes. And one of the problems for putting an entity like that in the center of the city is the value of the real estate that the city sees immediately losing the taxes that can collect from those places. I can imagine that was the problem with Hahnemann. The city had dollar signs on every window saying we could collect taxes here.
Absolutely.
So, but again, the problem is you have to invest, no matter how expensive it is. If it's expensive for the city or the state or the federal government, you put money there so that you don't have to pay money later in treatment of more people being addicted.
Right. Absolutely. And once again, that's where the city and state fail on so many levels that, they almost make it impossible for people to get help.
Right.
If you don't have private insurance, which not many people nowadays do have private health insurance,
right?
And you're working off of a state insurance, that's basically setting yourself up for failure sometimes because it's working against you. So I think, if the city were able to enact more programs that will engage not just the community, but that it's affecting, but the residents, and explain to them. They did that resilience program years ago, or project or something like that happened, and all it was a bunch of people getting together once in a while talking and blowing sunshine where it shouldn't be blowing. And the city fails on that level. And I'm just going to push it right back to that because, you know, my whole attitude is it starts at the top in our city and it's been affecting us all the way down.
Yeah. There has to be a willingness to invest in this.
There's no willingness
with
to
a vision
invest.
that there's a solution ahead of time.
No.
Well, in the same vein, there has to be a willingness to invest in early on. When we can do something about that, invest in education, education for our children,
Yes.
and the solutions to poverty, because that's where it all begins. People who are extremely poor, who have no steady incomes, who have no families, no unified families, because a lot of single mothers or single fathers, for that matter. So it's homelessness, poverty, all that leads, in many cases, to addiction and crime. Because I was watching a series, Dope Sick. I don't know if you
Oh,
watched
yeah.
it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So one of the complaints from the people about drug addiction was that since it began with what was the name of the drug?
Crack?
Oxycodone.
Oh, Oxycontin?
Oxycontin.
Oxycodone?
It began with that, and as people became addicted to the drug, then they committed crimes in order to be able to buy more drugs, which is the normal cycle of this kind of
Cyclical
addiction,
effect, yeah.
right?
For sure.
And so, at which point do you attack that crisis?
You know, I once again, you know, it has to be addressed immediately. I mean, this isn't anything new. We lived with, as it was said, hell on earth on those railroad tracks for how many years on Gurney Street? How many years? And it was almost like, let them stay there because they're out of sight, out of mind.
Oh, the Conrail site?
The Conrail site, out of sight, out of mind. And once they decide to close that off and they let everything come to surface, that's when all hell broke loose. And they did a very lousy job of being able to clean up the mess that they created.
Right.
And I think it starts with, once again, you talked about education, educating the youth, but we also have to educate the adults, because the adults are very, very much the people that are one-sided, way focused and closed-minded to the things, because once again, they look at it as being a very much a stigma sort of thing.
It's a stigma. It's a
It's
problem.
definitely stigma.
It's a problem for the people who are marginated from society,
Right.
who are have already established a record of being criminals or being addicted to substances, and therefore they are not desirable for your neighborhood. That's one of those things that people don't want to do that, because they say, okay, let the government worry about that. Let these do-gooders, the non-profits who dedicate their efforts to solving the problem. But at the core, again, I repeat it, is education and helping to get people out of poverty. Except for one thing. No, there's a bill in Congress, was just signed by Biden, that will have an impact on our society. And the Republicans fought it all the way until the last minute. In fact, I don't know, there were a couple of Republicans who voted to pass it. But for the most part, the Republican Party is not interested in this bill, that $1.25 trillion. There is money there for everything. And so let's hope there's some money for this problem. But we're going to take a brief pause here in Usala Radio. Estamos en compañía de Britt Carpenter. Danny Ramos controla la máquina digital. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Regresamos en un momento.
You ever had this food before, or it's like the first time you were here?
Yes,
Couple times.
Couple times.
Yep.
Yes.
So what do you order right now? Which one?
We got the chicken tikka masala
Yeah, I got the
and the butter.
Oh, so the Indian and Pakistani food is a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
So you tolerate the spice or everything?
I like spice, but we got the mild.
Oh, okay. So it's
But I do spice.
and you?
Yeah,
like
I
spice?
mean, I can somewhat handle spice. Not too much, so that's why I got the mild.
Señores oyentes de Usala Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda de RoundTable, desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Nos acompaña Britt Carpenter. Estamos hablando sobre varios temas aquí Entre tanto, Dani Ramos dirige este programa. Vamos a hablar ahora sobre lo que ha estado pasando en Washington. The government has just, Congress has just passed the $1.2 trillion bill that's supposed to be signed by Biden. And there is another bill, I think today, I think they're supposed to be signing it today because the congressmen and women want to go home for Thanksgiving. And so they're about to sign a bill that has been controversial, even infighting among Democrats about what to do. But I think eventually it will pass. What I was saying was that there is money in it that will transform our society in ways that the New Deal with FDR did. From what because I'm no expert here, but I read, I hear that this is a bill that would help education, would help people get out of poverty, will help people get better health care, will help people get better transportation because the rail system will be reinforced, will be done better than it has been done so far. Many bridges and roads around the country will be repaired, all of which leads to more jobs available.
Right.
And so
it would help.
It would help, absolutely. Because, I mean, right now the government actually, in fact, has been creating jobs at a very fast pace, even though that doesn't appear in the numbers that we see regularly.
Because nobody wants to work. But anyway.
Okay, why is that?
I don't know.
There are jobs available and people don't want to go to them.
I run a small business. I run my own small business, and I had 9 employees prior to the beginning of COVID. I've had 1 left. Now I'm searching and begging and pleading with people, and it's a job where I used to get hundreds of resumes before. Why? I don't know. Did the government make it too easy? I don't know.
Okay,
I don't want to get into it.
That's one of the common assumptions, that people were given checks by the government and people have no incentive to return to work. But that is not exactly the case with everything. What has happened is waiters, waitresses, people in the service economy, landscapers, people who were helping to pick up the crops in New Jersey or Texas or Arizona, they were forced by COVID to find other jobs. And many of them saw the light. They said, I'm not going back to that restaurant to work for $2.25 an hour and then no tips or very few, very short amounts of tips. So why am I going back to that job? So I know at least one individual, right? This is just partly an example of what's happening, who left the service industry. He worked at a restaurant before. He decided to become a banker, working as a cashier at a bank, making more money, better money, no tips, but he has a steady income. He has health care. And so there you are. You don't depend on the will of the people to support you by giving you nice, generous tips.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about a guaranteed check, or a check that each week what you're going to be getting. In the service industry, because I was in the service industry for many years, it was a crapshoot. It was, you went in and you never knew how your day was going to be.
Right.
And there was no, and number one, you didn't get your checks anyway because the checks were voided because 202 plus all the tips you make, they just void your So it's like, if you didn't get tips, you weren't getting paid. And healthcare was never something in the service industry.
They never offered.
So I think, not just did COVID, change all that. I think people have realized that we're now entering, it was 2020. We're in 2021. Get with the times. Healthcare is a necessity out there.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a luxury.
Right.
It's a necessity. Everybody should have options to get this. This should be, it should be available through employers.
How about minimum wage?
Minimum wage, minimum wage is well below the the line that I'd ever want
Way-
to see.
way below.
Way below the line. So when all these people were saying, oh, it's up to $15 an hour, what a great incentive. Yeah, it's a great incentive, but I'm looking at the fact that like in 1990, I was actually only making $10 an hour as an adjunct professor at a business college. That was 1990. So here we are in 2021. They're saying raise $5.
Right,
So if I was
right.
with that job for 31 years and they only gave me $5 more, like, come
That would
on.
not be a very big incentive.
And I think it also sends a signal out to people, or it sends a message out to somebody saying that your time isn't worth it to us, or you're not valued
Right.
if we don't pay you a certain amount of money.
Right.
And that's important to people, to feel valued, to feel appreciated in the work they do.
So you probably experienced what teachers for a couple of centuries have experienced in this country, low wages,
Yeah.
for one of the most important professions. I was a teacher myself for 35 years.
I remember.
St. Joe's Prep. So
35 years.
So
How old are you?
I'm pretty old.
You are old. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I could be your father, but if I were, I would disown you. Anyway, so
You're being very polite. I would have called you grandfather, but hey, here we are.
anyway, thank you for that, Britt. This is the last time
I had to give you that
show.
dig. I had to. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I was paid
Back
better.
on track.
I was paid better than a lot of teachers because it's a private school. It was well financed.
Mhm.
I had no complaints about that. But early on, it was difficult to remain a teacher.
Right.
When I saw some of my friends of the same age, the same credentials, making a lot more money in the business world. So teachers never made a lot of money. Even at the lower grades, at say high school, grammar school,
Mhm.
they made even less.
Mhm.
And it was traditionally a job for females.
Right.
And because of that, it was considered that this was a second income,
salary.
a
Yes.
second income for the family. So there was no need to worry about that until it became clear that women deserved to be paid equally. They could be raising families independent of men, and so the pay should be equal regardless of the sex, and especially that women were filling the jobs in most schools at the primary school level and then high school level also. In colleges was a different story, and women were still discriminated against.
Right.
in
Absolutely.
college pay. But anyway, so all this to say, the government needs and has always needed to invest more in education. One of those things, the basic solution. I just mentioned this the other day in another show that I was doing about economic improvements in this country. I said, look, Japan and Germany, two countries that believed that are not ideal philosophies for government, but Japan and Germany that came out of the war as decrepit as you can be, destroyed completely, societies dismantled. Look at Germany and Japan. In the 50s, they became superpowers almost. Based on what? Two societies that have a high respect for education. We know about the German system that early on separates people who want to do academic work versus people who want to do like hands-on job, mechanics, roofers, electricians, so that they separate them early on. Japan did the same thing, and those two societies recovered quickly. Why can't we do that in this country? We're capable of doing it. Look how quickly our mission transformed in the 1940s when it was necessary to build ships and airplanes for the war.
Right.
We can do it.
We can,
So-
but why
But
not?
we're not.
We're not. And why?
Good
Where are
question.
where are the monies going to? Where are these funds going to? Bring it back to, once again, at the state and the local level. I see where like these funds are being spent on a state and a local level. And I'm thinking to myself, if they have funds for all these non-essential issues and things going on, where are the funds for the real issues and what's essential? And I don't see that. Does that make sense? I don't see the monies being, okay, how many more pop-up beer gardens does a city need? And how much money is put into that?
Right.
How many people do you need on a street corner in Rittenhouse greeting people as they're walking by to be part of a Rittenhouse Development Corporation? You know, and I'm not, I pick on Rittenhouse because that's where it's happened, and rightfully so. That's a larger income tax. I mean, zip code.
It's a tax base.
Is, you know, but like, you know, I look at stuff like that, and I look at, like, you know, we're being failed. We're being failed right here by our own people, and they're not making it easy for us to want to go on, if that makes sense.
Well, one of the things that we were discussing when I mentioned the economy and the $1.2 trillion bill coming up is that where is that money going to be distributed from? And so if it goes to Harrisburg to allot to the different local governments, we're in trouble.
Oh, yes.
Because they are not friendly to the Democratic government of Philadelphia. So we have no power. We have no influence in Harrisburg. And what's going to happen? But it is essential because maybe it's through the governor and the legislature coming up with a format that would benefit all the cities equally, that would distribute according to the percentage of the population in certain parts of the state and so on, as opposed to just willy-nilly give it only as a political favor. Because these are federal funds. I mean, these are our money, actually. It's our tax money being distributed. So I would like to see a plan where this is coming to Philadelphia for education. This is coming for infrastructure, you know, for the railroads, for the buses, for, you know, SEPTA in dire need of help, as we know. So I want to see where all those things are going. It's too early in the process for that. But I want to see when the money is in the bank,
right?
Where is it going?
Yeah, me too.
And who's controlling it?
Me too.
So, and that's where we could be in trouble because Democratic Philadelphia has to compete with Republican Harrisburg and that part of the state.
It wouldn't have to compete with it no matter what party it is if it was just run right. If it was just the right people, you know, Democrat, Republican, it's got to be the right people. If you don't have the right people at the top,
yeah,
it's going to affect the whole.
Okay,
population.
All I'll say is voters pay attention because if there was a time when it was important to know who is the governor of the state, is now. If we leave a Republican governor and a Republican Senate and House in Harrisburg, we're in big trouble because we're the stepchild in that case.
We already are as the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth, yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, okay, and that's in a way it's funny, but it's not because Philadelphia also is the poorest urban area in the country, and within the poorest urban area in the country, we have some of the poorest neighborhoods in Philadelphia. So it's like double whammy in terms of poverty. We live in a poor city, and then we have poor areas of the city that have absolutely nothing.
But yet we're taxed higher than the rest.
There you are.
Okay. So how do you expect people to get ahead when you're taxing them more? And especially if you live and work in the city and you want to buy things in the city, everything is higher priced.
Yeah.
And then they get mad. Why are people moving out of the city?
Well, fortunately, they have passed this new marijuana law, so we can all get high and don't worry about taxes. That's what I would say at this point. Anyway, we're going to take a short break here en Usala Radio. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Britt Carpenter nos acompaña el día de hoy. Dani Ramos controla la máquina digital aquí en la mesa redonda. Regresamos en un momento.
You ever had this food before, or is it like the first time you were here?
Yes,
Couple times.
Couple times.
Yep.
Yes.
So what do you order right now? Which one?
We got the chicken tikka masala
Yeah, I got the
and the butter.
Oh, so the Indian and Pakistani food is a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
So you tolerate the spice or everything?
I like spice, but we got the mild.
Oh, okay. So it's
But I do spice.
and you?
Yeah,
Like
I
spice?
mean, I can somewhat handle spice. Not too much, so that's why I got the mild.
Señores oyentes de Usala Radio, los saluda Fernando Mendez aquí en compañía de Britt Carpenter. Dani Ramos controla la máquina digital. Estamos en la mesa redonda hablando sobre varios temas. Well, for the time that we have left, Britt, I want to talk about the nature of our society at this point in history.
Okay.
It's like we are so deeply divided. It's astonishing to see on the one side, Republicans who don't want to hear the truth about, let's say, the needs of the country. They don't hear about poverty and homelessness, and they don't want to hear, above all, about January 6th and the attempt to destroy our democracy with the insurrection of January 6th. Evidence is coming to light that there was something done at the Willard Hotel in Washington. There was a group on the eve of January 6th determined to kill Pelosi and kill Mike Pence to stop them from doing what they were supposed to do with the vote, ratification, the certification of the vote. So that's one aspect of where we are right now. But the country is divided not only because of that radical right that they don't want to listen to reason, but also the radical left that has been tagged as Marxist, socialist. If you listen to any amount of Fox News or any of the radical right,
I try not to listen to Fox News.
Well, but I do, because I want to hear what they're saying.
I know you do.
And I want to hear what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And
you're crazy.
What they say is that the country is in the hands of Marxists and socialists right now. Biden, according to them, is the first Marxist. And so how do we meet in the middle? How can we have a country that can be governed? It reminds me of what they said to Mussolini, if it was possible to govern Italy. And he said, it's possible, but pointless. So are we in that situation in this country too? Is it pointless to try to govern this country?
Well, it's funny when you said, how can we? I was thinking to myself, I'm not quite sure we can. The damage has been done. You know, there is such division between people in this country because of the government, and because of the politics, and it's been allowed to go on for so long, or it's been acceptable that I'm not quite sure there is any repair. Do you think we're able to bounce back from this?
But I think,
is there a utopia?
I think there is no utopia.
Okay.
No, I don't believe in that. But there is sort of a heuristic solution to all these things, meaning that you don't aim for the perfect solution, but there are solutions that will be satisfying for the most part. Mm-hmm. They say 60 or 70% solution will be more than having no solution at all. So even if we get only part of the problem solved, it will be better than not facing the problem, not confronting the extravagant demands of the left, the socialists, or the annoying, not comprehensive opposition of the right. I don't understand what they oppose everything, and they oppose this bill, the $1 trillion bill, to transform our society. They oppose almost every step of it. But now they will go to their respective states, Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, and so on, and say, look what is happening. Look all the money that we have to build bridges, to repair railroads, to give you better opportunities for housing. Look what the government is doing after they oppose the whole thing. You know that's how cynical they are, especially Mitch McConnell.
When you said Mitch McConnell, I mean, well, that man,
and Kevin McCarthy, don't forget that monster. No, how about Ted Cruz? Is there a more annoying politician on the scene at this point? A man who Trump said, your father was involved in the assassination of JFK, and your wife, by the way, is ugly. And yet, Ted Cruz goes around saying that Trump is his hero, he defends him, and he's the most faithful bootlicker that Trump has at this point. How is that possible? This man has no spine. And that's only one example of.
There's a lot of people out there like that have no spine that are the same as Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz and then Marco Rubio from Florida.
Philadelphia.
From Florida.
Florida.
And look what he just did. He stopped the confirmation of two important posts. One of them is the ambassador to China. He opposed the nomination. Why? We need to put somebody there quickly. We need to have. I know that China is not our friend, but we need to have diplomatic relations with China. And this guy, Marco Rubio, two Hispanics, Rubio and Ted Cruz. So we aspire to put more Hispanics in power. Let's hope they're not of the same ilk, because they're not good examples. I mean, I want to see some reasonable people get appointed. So like the two brothers who are in politics, one of the mayor of San Francisco, the mayor of San Antonio. It's a Texan anyway. Oof. And there are two brothers. But they're Democrats.
Texans are a little scary though.
Why? No, look, we had a great president from Texas, Lyndon Johnson. He was a good president.
And what year was that?
That was 1964.
Yeah, a lot has changed since then. Don't you? What about you? Why don't you run for a higher office?
Yeah, because I don't qualify for a president. For one
not
thing.
A president, but I mean,
Yeah. Why don't you run? You're the activist.
Are you?
All I am.
There'd be an assassination immediately.
What I am is I am a critic. I say you're not doing a good job. That's my job, to point out how many things you are failing at doing.
Oh, I'm good at that
as a politician. As a politician, it's not my responsibility to provide the answers. In fact, I don't have any answers. I only can say you're not doing a good job. Well, at this point, and this is, unfortunately, we are approaching the end of this program, which all of the time always flies here. But this is the point to say it's excessive radicalism on both sides that it has impeded progress. It brings us to a standstill because nothing will happen. This Congress, right now, Democrats are attempting to pass bills to do something about the economy, do something about healthcare. Anyway, all the aspects of our daily life. The Republicans are just dedicated to stopping them, not offering any solutions, not offering any platform that would help us with better health, better roads, better living. The Republicans are just saying, all we want to do is have power and make sure that Trump comes back in 2024. That's it.
Right.
That's the plan they have. They have no other agenda. So that's where we are right now. Unfortunately, there's no solution. So unless you have one, and then you can give it to us in 30 seconds that we have left.
Oh, yeah, I can't do anything in 30 seconds. I'm not that good.
No? How about a minute? I hear you're the minute man.
That's for a different program.
Anyway, Britt, thank you for coming to
Fernando, thank you for having me. It's been a long time.
Please come back, yes.
My pleasure.
Señores oyentes de Usala Radio, muchas gracias por su sintonía en el día de hoy. Se despide Fernando Mendez en compañía de Britt Carpenter y Dani Ramos, controlando la máquina digital. Los esperamos. Hasta la próxima. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Mendez, host of the RoundTable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news.